Can you say that one more time?
Absolutely.
Sorry,
Hold
I
on.
forgot.
A nebulizer, you are delivering medication. An aerosol generator, you are delivering heat and humidity.
Got it. Awesome.
I was actually stressed, really stressed right there. All right, you guys, so complications, let's see. So humidity, we talked about that. ISB, we talked about, I think that's the general big concept you guys need to remember. So what is bronchospasm? When I talk about bronchospasm, what am I talking about? Excellent. Now, it's constriction of the airway, but in this case, I want you to be much, much more specific than just constriction of the airway.
Constriction of the smooth airway muscles.
Smooth airway muscles. Excellent. And so why is that important? Because with constriction, so new concept, don't write this down, just know this generally right now, okay? In general, constriction of an airway is due to one of three things. It's either the smooth muscles constricting, too much secretions, or too much swelling. In general, there's other factors, but the bottom line is it's either muscle, swelling, or secretions, right? And let me go to humidity therapy, click on that button.
This lesson will introduce the non-urgent concepts relating to humidity.
Okay, so when we talk about the epithelial layer, okay, sorry, let me go back to bronchospasms, right? Bronchospasms, think muscle constriction. Or swelling is another way that the airways get smaller, or you want to remember secretion, right? One of those three. We'll talk about those later on, but just know those concepts right now. So, so remember the epithelial cell, right? Remember the cell. What are the key parts of that epithelial cell that I want you to remember? The cilia. Woo! Goblet cells, submucosal cells. Keep going.
Gel layer.
The gel layer.
Aqueous layer.
Aqueous layer. Hold on one more. Goblet, submucosal. Oh, and mucus. And mucus. Do we say that? Secretions. You said secretions. Sorry. All right. So, and everybody right now in your own head can draw this picture out and can label all of those different features. Correct? All right. So this. So with that, and we can all. You can describe how cilia works. All right. So give me the three. Give me the three indications for humidification. Bypass upper airway, warm the airway, or warm or cool, And what's the third one? Secretion management. Excellent. Remember all of those, because guess what? You'll be asked to write those down. What are the three indications for humidity therapy? So it's either hypothermia or hyperthermia, right? You can either cool the body, as in the case of a post-code blue, or warm the body. If the patient comes in drowning in cold water, you will warm the body up, or burn center. All right, so bypassed upper airway, hypothermia, secretion management. Consequence of inadequate humidification. Guess what? This would be a fantastic question to have you write the 5 or 6 things down that you need to know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, we've talked about 5 times about this ISB concept. So, number 1 is if you do not have adequate humidification, it shifts it down, shifts the ISB down. So somebody tell me, what in the heck does that mean? It shifts it down? I don't get it. Explain to me.
The inspired air is going to go further down, and it takes longer to be humidified and heated up.
It's going to be colder and colder and colder. And so by definition, what's the problem with it being shifted down?
It's going to do damage to the
epithelial layer. Okay, so one of those important concepts to remember is ISB will be shift down. Makes sense, right? Okay, so the second one though is irritation, and we talked about bronchospasms. I hope everybody understands what a bronchospasm now is. Drying of secretion and potential mucus plugging. All right, so remind me about that cell we just talked about, the epithelial cell. Everybody's got that picture in their mind, right? And so when we talk about drying of secretions, why is that kind of a bad thing?
It's harder for the cilia to move. Yeah.
Harder for the cilia to move because they like to have an aqueous layer to push through. Okay, sorry to be gross, but everybody has had a pneumonia once in their life. And where you have coughed up green, putrid, foul-smelling, nasty, thick, disgusting stuff out of your throat, right? And you spit it out, you were amazed that when you spit it on the wall, it stuck on there, it hung, and it just kind of wobbled back and forth. And it stuck there for probably, what, 8 minutes before it fell off? Because it was that thick and viscous, right?
Oh, I never spit it on
And,
the wall.
and every time you walked by, well then you were never a kid. And every once in a while you would walk by and you still see the remains of your spit that you spit on the wall. Because it was that thick. All right, here's the bottom line, you guys. That's what cystic fibrosis patients with cystic fibrosis, humble apologies that I incorrectly named them. Patients with cystic fibrosis deal with this every day. And so you guys can imagine that thick green goop that you just coughed out is in their lungs, and they are unable to have their cilia go, right? They cannot move the secretions. So remember, the third consequence is drying out of secretion. Now, let's talk about mucus plugging. Mucus plugging is actually what kills quite a few of our asthmatic patients. So now we're going to get into, oh, and I forgot to have you give me your homework. So instead, you're just going to throw it all over the ground.
Yeah, I was about to get.
So let's talk about mucus plugging. And if you guys would all do that to me. Here's the truth.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir. All right, so we've got our airway. I shouldn't have erased it, darn it. Oops. Oh, dear. Okay, once again, imagine a tree. A tree is upside down. Down here are the alveoli. You have the alveoli, you have the capillaries. There are millions of alveoli and capillaries in your lungs. There are also millions of bronchioles. So when we talk about mucus plugging, right, we talk about, unfortunately, mucus that has been down in the lungs for so long, it solidifies. And guess what's going to happen? It's going to go into your airway, or it's going to go into your alveoli, and it literally will plug your capillaries up. Damn it! I said capillaries. Your bronchioles or your alveoli. So if it plugs them up, I know I suck, you guys. If it plugs them up right here, what condition is going to happen in your alveoli that you've learned? Shunt. And so by definition with this, we now have an atelectatic alveoli. Atelectasis is an area of, if this is my alveoli, and that's a semi-open one, that is a closed alveoli due to mucus plugging, and so atelectasis is airless alveoli, and by definition, shunt. So inadequate, write this down please, inadequate humidification leads to secretion and mucus plugging, And as a result, the patient will have atelectasis and thereby shunt. Everybody got it?
I don't understand this.
Okay, so mucus plugging. Remember that thing that I told you was thick and stuck on the wall right here, right? That will occur down in your distal lungs, way in the bases, and it will stick there. And you will not be able to get air in or out of that alveoli or those alveoli because of that mucus. And that's what they call mucus plugging. It plugs up your bronchioles, right? So what did I just say?
This is a quick thing. Plugs
Atelectasis happens, and so can air get in and out? No. Okay, so number 3 with this inadequate humidification is the fact that you do not get air in or out due to mucus plugging. The fourth one is, as we've already defined, damage to the cell lining. And the fifth one is impairment or destruction of the mucociliary escalator. And so why do you have impairment of the mucociliary escalator?
Not because it can't move.
Exactly, that's one. That is one. But what's the second one? So what happens if you don't have that aqueous layer? What if you don't have those secretion layers? What happens if your airways dry out? Your cilia are supposed to function in an aqueous environment. If you, the respiratory therapist, fail to give your patient humidification, it shifts the ISB down, and by definition, you now have an area in your lungs that does not have the adequate amount of moisture they need, and so you dry out the lungs. And that's where a lot of the epithelial damage will happen. Everybody conceptually understand this. All right, so this, I will put it straightforward to you. There is no, let's see, is there a trick question in there? There's a 2-part question with this one. One is, please name the 5 consequences of inadequate humidification, and this is exactly what I'm looking for. Write these 5 down. The second one is, I want to know that you understand bronchospasm. And the reason that it's important to understand bronchospasm is because you are, over the next 2 years and the rest of your career, are going to have to understand the difference between bronchospasm, secretion, and swelling. And so this is one of those key moments that I want you to put a huge star by this. Okay? So the question really is going to end up being, what causes the airways to close down? That's a horrible, I don't remember what the exact question is. What causes the lumen of the bronchioles to narrow? I think it's a little bit closer to the question. And so the 3 things that I want you guys to do, you're going to draw, and I don't care how you draw it, but you're going to label it. One is, you're going to label smooth muscle that constricts, causing the airways to get smaller. The second is, and you're going to do muscle constriction. You're going to point at what you drew for me. Muscle constriction. And that's also known as, thank you for saying bronchospasm. The second reason the bronchioles close is swelling. So if I came over and I just hauled off and smacked Fatima right in the face, she would have serious swelling, bruising. It would poke out, right? Because I'm a big, mean guy. And so the exact same thing happens in the lungs. However, it's not due to me smacking it. It's due to the body's own reaction to what they call an antigen. Don't write that down, but know that they're trying to get rid of what's called an antigen. You'll learn that in pathophysiology when you talk about asthma. So what I am going to want is that you're going to signify swelling somehow, and you're going to label it as W. Woo! Mama didn't raise an artist. Swelling.
Is that just inflammation?
Inflammation. Thank you so much. Inflammation, swelling, the exact same thing. I'm sorry, I can't say it's the exact same thing. I don't know why they call it inflammation or swelling. It's kind of like potato or potato.
Yeah.
It's the same damn thing. Okay, so I want you to label swelling. Then the third thing is I want you to put a big dot right here, and I want you to put either mucus or mucus plugging. Either. Just let me know that somehow it's mucus. Those three things in the alveoli. So if we're looking at the lungs, right, and you don't need to worry about this part right now, but if you're, I mean, for the test, but if you're looking at the lungs, we're in general talking about the lower divisions going from the bronchus to the bronchioles, those smaller airways. Do you know what kills most asthmatics? What's that?
Mucus plugging?
Absolutely. Mucus plugging and swelling. Do we have any asthmatics in here? So, do you have, what medications do you take?
Albuterol and the MDI inhaler.
Albuterol and what?
The MDI inhaler.
Excellent. Albuterol MDI inhaler. So do you, does that usually cure it? You're fine? Take care of it? You're fine? Sometimes. Excellent question. Okay, so one of your last test questions on the final, the fourth test, is going to be an asthmatic patient comes into your emergency room and has been at the hibachi hut, right? Inhale shrimp, has a bronchospasm like that, and you need to treat him in the emergency room. Can you, the respiratory therapist, take care of that patient? Will that patient be walking out of the hospital? And the answer is yes. Because people, when they bronchospasm like that. And fortunately, albuterol, how fast does it work for you guys? Fast, right? And it takes care of it. You're fine. You whatever antigen it is, you're totally fine. You go away from it. And if it's bad enough, you'll get steroids for the long term. But in general, you're going to be fine. So you, the respiratory therapist, will be able to take care of this patient. For the patient that has had a cold and just gotten sicker and sicker and sicker over a week, and they've been on albuterol for a week, and they come into your emergency room and they say, I can't breathe. Is your albuterol going to do anything for them? Do you know why? Swelling and mucus plugging. Guess what they're going to die from? Swelling and mucus plugging. That's not a test question, guys. Just know that it's one of those interesting kind of side things. Actually, it is a test question on our very last test. But here's the bottom line. If you fail to inadequately humidify the heat or humidify your air that you are delivering, the medical gas you're delivering to your patient, then unfortunately you will end up with these 5 things, one of which is the mucus plugging and bronchospasms. So, questions about that? Know these 5. Oh, and here's actually, why don't you guys point out that there's a better damn picture than my drawing? Oh, sweet Jesus. All right, everybody, look up here. Come here, here. Everybody, come on, real quick. Come on. Come on, get up here. It's a giant. Get up and move. I believe in moving your legs and your mind. All right, so here's the bottom line. This giant thing right here, this is your muscle, right? This right here is your secretions. Do you see that? This right here is your inflammation or your swelling. So when you're at the hibachi hut and you get in contact with your shrimp and you instantly start wheezing, it's due to the constriction of the muscles. Over the next period of time then, your body is going to continue to react and you're going to have swelling and mucus production. Those are the 3 components. All right, you guys read it. You should have said, why are you drawing this up here? It's up here. All right, go sit back down. All right, so let's talk about 2 different concepts. Active versus passive humidification. So we're going to start with passive humidification. This device is called an HME, Heat Moisture Exchanger, HME. It is designed, everybody, sorry, come on, come quickly, go, walk quickly.
Run.
It is designed to be on your mechanical ventilator, right? So you have your circuit, thank you very much, I tried to throw the trash can, I missed. So you have your circuit and you take your HME and you put it on the end of your circuit, and your patient's ET tube, endotracheal tube, is right here. The HME is designed to take the patient's own heat and humidity. When the patient breathes out, it's trapped in this device, the heat and the humidity. So when the patient breathes in, they breathe in their own heat and humidity. So this is a passive device, right? I don't actively give heat and humidity. Heat and humidity, right? So now let's look at that picture. In your mind, go back to that picture that I asked you on the quiz. Did we quiz on Tuesday? I think we quizzed on Tuesday. Yeah. And the question was know the relative humidity and the temperature of an HME. And what I needed you to do is tell me where the circuit was relative to the patient. Okay? So, and you guys remember that picture, we'll talk about that in a second, but this is a passive humidifier. An active humidifier is where you are going to turn on the heat, you are going to give water humidity, and so you are actively giving heat and humidity. Passive, active, and man, I tell you guys, either I'm spitting or I'm throwing stuff at people. Oh dear God, go sit down. Absolutely. So, okay, you look at these challenging questions. I love it. I love it. Okay, so there's one. It's a trapping mechanism. Traps heat and moisture. The question then became, what in the heck is this for? You can use this for one of two things. You can either suck out extra water, right? Or in very certain situations, you don't need a ventilator, and you can deliver oxygen with this. Now, we don't do it here at the hospital. Okay, of course we do. Our trach patients, once in a blue moon, our trach patients hate having the active humidification. Why? Over in rehab, because they cannot get out of bed without being choked by the thing. And so we will put an HME on their tracheostomy so they can be up and walking around and not tethered to a wall unit. Make sense? Okay. So to answer your question, these are patients that are generally healthy, right? They have cancer, but we had to bypass their upper airway. That's why they've got a trach. They don't need oxygen, but they need heat and humidity. So we use a HME. It's a different brand, but it's the same thing. And if they need oxygen, we can deliver oxygen through this because the cold dry oxygen goes in here, but passively, it's the key word, passively the patient's exhalation and heat are trapped in the HME.
So that just attaches to their outer cannula?
Yeah, it sticks right there. Now, it's a different looking one. I mean, it's a yeah, it's about that big, and it's open on the other side, and you don't have the port that adapts in there. But it's like I said, if I had one, I'd show you, but I'd have to walk all the way back there. You can look up HMEs for trachs if you're curious, and it'll bring it up.
Was it ever like this filled up with screen?
Oh! Do you hear the brain working? You know what? Just because you asked that question, we're so not there. We're so not there. What a question. All right. So, Fatima, make sure that you ask me that exact question in about 10, 20 slides. I don't know where it is. I was hoping we'd talk about it right now. Okay, so is this active or passive? Passive. An active one is where you deliver heat and humidity. Questions about those? The question that she asked is, do these ever plug up? There's your, what do you call it, a teaser? Is that what, like movie teaser? There's your teaser question. All right, so let's talk about Passover humidification. Passover humidification is nothing more than we take water and we have water go over, or air go over the water and back to your patient, right? Very simple concept. If you want to heat it, then you just have a heating source below it. It is a pass over because the air does not go into the water. Very simple. We don't use these anymore. They are, we used to use these 100% of the time. We don't need to use them anymore. We have better things, and they are called bubble humidifiers. So understand this one. Passover humidifier directs the flow of gas, and I'm going to point, in its system over the surface of the body of water, which can be heated or unheated. Okay, here is a key component, key point that you need to put a star by. You need to know that the higher the temperature, the more the humidity that can be carried. Higher the temperature, the more humidity. Or as he says, or she says, as gas temperature increases, so does the ability to carry water. Please put a big star by that. You'll be asked that, not on this specific question, but on down the line. So if, anyway, let me keep going. Yada. Okay, that's all you really need to know with that. Let's talk about bubble humidifiers. All right, sorry everybody, you can write in a second. Come on. All right. Where's my little nasal cannula bubbler? Okay, I need the little humidifier that's this doggone big. The water bottle. Oh, here we go. All right. All right, so put about 2 inches in there. That's an HME with the elbow. Perfect. All right, so clearly you've got the air goes in here, your gas-driven air goes in here, goes under the water, bubbles up. This is called a bubble humidifier. This is a reusable system. We do not use these in the hospital. We have disposable ones. You use it once, you pitch it in the trash can. It is used, these are usually used for your nasal cannulas. They are not used for your high flow nasal cannulas. The difference between high flow and the difference between being able to use a high flow nasal cannula and a regular nasal cannula is heat. The heat component of it allows you to have 60 liters a minute blow through your nose, as opposed to if I were to just raise this up to 60 liters per minute of cool water, guess what? You would not be comfortable. You would hate that, and you would tell me, get that crap off my face. So here's the bottom line. High flow nasal cannula technology allows for increased flow, increased minute ventilation increased tidal volume minute ventilation being met. Thereby, it is a much higher flow, high flow versus low flow, high flow device than a nasal cannula. So, think about the ISB for a second. Do you need the ISB when you are, do you need to have humidification when you are on 1 or 2 liters of oxygen? You don't. Because you know what, your body can manage that. There's no problem with that. Okay, but now you get up into the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, and oh, by the way, 6 liters is really the highest you want to go with this style of cannula. So 3, 4, 5, 6, guess what you're going to add? You're going to add humidity, not heat, and you're going to have it be a, what style is this? Bubble. It is a bubble humidifier. Everybody, before we go sit down, come over and look and find out why they call it a bubble humidifier.
It bubbles. It bubbles.
I told you this is the fundamentals.
I don't understand.
Oh dear.
But it's not.
Seems to roll. What's
It is.
supposed to be about?
It's not warm.
It is not warm. Why is it not warm?
When you read it.
There's no heat source, correct. So it is a cool humidifier. And the reason that we can do cool humidity is because it's such a low flow. Yeah. And we can just get a little humidity, but we don't need to have heat. Hey, did I tell you guys? I warned you. These are the two more boring damn lectures that we've got, right? You got to know them. You got to know them why. But there's nothing cool about it. You know, there's nobody that's going to go, wow, you saved a life with a bubble humidifier. Sorry, deal with it. Oxygen delivery is a hell of a lot more fun than this stuff. All right, so bubble humidifier, Passover, and now we get to jet nebulizers. Do we need to go back over here and talk about jet nebulizers? We set up a jet nebulizer. Richard actually wore the mask. And so you can remember, everybody should be able to say, jet nebulizer is a Venturi style jet, Venturi meaning air entrainment device that you can have with heat or without heat, right? We proved to ourselves the heater. Who had the heater? We put the heater on there, and we could either do it with or without the heater. Okay, when do we use the heater? I would want to remember that. Come on. Bypass step or airway, fine. You guys all turned your brains off. And you do not heat anytime you've got just a face mask. But you do want the humidity because of the shifting down of the ISB and the other complications that you have. Makes sense to everybody? So here's the bottom line. Now a jet nebulizer, sorry. Must know this. You must know that a jet nebulizer uses a jet of compressed air that passes through a restricted orifice. I would definitely want to put a star by that. I would want to know that a jet nebulizer uses a jet of compressed gas that passes through a restricted orifice. You would probably, if you know that much, you're probably good. But it also creates a low pressure area near the tip of the tube. And fluid is drawn up to meet with the flow. Okay, so put a star by that. You will absolutely want to know that. I think the question is something like, which one of these devices uses compressed gas that goes through a restricted orifice? And I think it's like nasal cannula, or bubble humidifier, Passover, jet nebulizer, or something else. So remember that one. All right, so let's prove it to ourselves. Come on, everybody, you got to come run back over here with me. Actually, no, I feel willing. He's like, listen, this is not the church. I got to sit. Sit back down. I'll bring it to you. I feel you, man. Stay seated. Don't get up. All right, so this is our jet nebulizer, right? I pointed the wrong thing. Jet nebulizer. The flow of air comes from the flow meter. It goes into the jet/Venturi system, right? I know, I suck today. The jet nebulizer Venturi system that you dial. But what you guys will want to remember is that this is how the flow of gas, and it actually draws fluid, water, up through the back into the nebulizer part. Where was I wrong?
Through the restricted orifice.
Why are they calling this a
I was just
nebulizer?
about to
Maybe
ask that.
that's
Is
where
there
I'm
any
getting
medication?
confused.
It's just heat and humidity.
Yeah.
So why is it enough of I was just about to ask that.
The aerosol device, I'm going to have to clarify this because I think this is where I'm getting really confused. This jet nebulizer theory.
This is going to be like a positive, negative
pressure thing,
Mhm.
but for this unit.
Dude, I'm just going to smash my head against the wall because I won't be able to figure that out. Here's the bottom line. Water goes up this orifice, right, into the this port, and the two of them, air and humidity, come out. So key part with this is know that it is a jet of compressed gas passes through a restricted orifice. Okay, you guys can see this diagram right here. Just follow through that, you're good. This is very simple. I don't even think this is on the test. All you need to know is how to get the water into here. There's one system where you take ID bags. The ID bags are hung. They go into a container. The water continuously drips. You can change out the bags when they're low. It is a continuous system. Versus intermittent, this one obviously has a finite amount of water. You are responsible for going and changing out bottles, right? Everybody understand that? Any questions about that? Continuous feed versus intermittent feed. And I don't know if there is a test question or not about that. I don't remember. Heating components of the humidification system. Okay, all right, you guys. Bring your paperwork with you because you got to draw this out. And you will want to draw a picture of the ideal ventilator humidification system. So, William, you must have spent hours with this.
I did. Yesterday, leg day.
My legs are done. I cannot move anymore. Well, think of that as conditioning. All right, so what we're talking about today is servo. We're talking about this servo. So the question is something to the effect of, please draw and describe the ideal heat and humidification system for delivering heat and humidity to your patient on mechanical ventilation. Okay? What I really am going to want to know is that you understand a couple of concepts. That there is an inspiratory limb, right? The inspiratory limb takes the gas from the humidifier and the heater to the patient. The expiratory limb of the circuit takes it back from the patient back to the exhalation port of the ventilator. So know the difference between an inspiration and an expiration limb, or an inspiratory expiratory limb, whichever one you want to write. You will also want to draw that there is a heating element, a heating anything, that there is a heat source, that there is a water source that goes to the inspiratory side. All right, so here is the key concept that I want you guys to make sure that you explain to me. It's the servo feedback mechanism that we've already talked about. So this line measures temperature, just temperature, at the distal end next to the patient on the inspiratory side. So put a dot here with a line back to the heater that says this is the servo control mechanism that gives feedback about temperature at the patient Y. Okay, guess why they call it a patient Y? Because it looks like a Y.
Oh my goodness.
I know! You know what? All that chemistry crap that you had to learn where they had all these fancy names. No, man. This is simplicity at its finest. Here's the bottom line. Draw that out. Then also, you'll want to put in there that you have a heated wire in your circuit. The heated wire, as you guys can all see, is controlled by the same type of mechanism. And so, with the heated wire, you're going to have heat. Let's see if I can find it. There. It is going to measure, it's going to measure and control the heat in the wire to make sure that the wire is at the appropriate level to make a gradient that is the same throughout the circuit. And I should have said a temperature gradient throughout the circuit. Temperature gradient. The bane of your existence when it comes to humidification delivered to a mechanically ventilated patient is temperature gradient changes. What is going to infuriate you is rain out in your circuit. Rain out means we've gone from aerosol to particulate water in the circuit. The particulate water in the circuit will literally be water in the circuit that'll slosh back and forth. And you will hate that. And there will be, we'll talk about FiO2 changes and ventilation changes and all that about with water in there. So, temperature gradient changes can be for many different things, but the most common temperature gradient changes is the atmospheric temperature versus what the ventilator is trying to deliver temperature-wise. The good thing is we get to go through some slides on all